What's up, nerds? I hope you're doing well today. I'm doing so-so as I record this. It is St. Patty's Day, so it'll be a week late by the time you see this, but happy St. Patty's Day to you. I hope you're enjoying it in whatever way you see fit. Today, I invite you to grab whatever meal, snack, treat, drink, and comfy spot you prefer, and let me talk at you for a minute. And today I'd like to talk to you about a set of playtest rules that I recently received. Once I get a hold of a link for them, I'll put that in the description. I'm going to double check, make sure it's okay, but I'll also put a link to the games/company's Discord server in the description for anyone who wants to go follow the progress of the game as it gets there. I feel like personally this is getting pretty close to a 1.0, but I'm not a writer. And the game is Monolith by Ben Stroud from Night Phoenix. Let me double check. I want to say games, but it might be design. It is games. Night Phoenix Games. This is a ground-up solo co-op cyberpunk experience. And I want to read you something because the first page of this gives me heavy vibes about something. I want to read it and let you see what you pick up on. And if we picked up on the same thing that was being put down. Or if that was even the intention. I don't know. The network is dead. The wireless dream has ended. An age of fear, ultraviolence, and cybernetic augmentation has begun. Among the ruins of the old world stands a monument to progress. A cursed city. Monolith. That gives me super strong cyberpunk Mordheim vibes. Now, again, there is the use of the phrase "a cursed city," but I feel like I would have gotten those vibes even without those three words in that paragraph. And that really, really, really excites me. I love cyberpunk. It is possibly, if not my favorite genre of fiction, it is tied right up there with high fantasy and dark fantasy. It's top 3. Easy. So basics that you need are a 3x3 space, pretty standard for 28mm skirmish gaming. It fits comfortably on a kitchen table, and you can always scale down some if you need to, or you could scale all the way down to 10 or 15mm. But the point is that you can make the game fit in the space that you have and use pretty much whatever you need. I think you need about 4 models per team plus enemies. It specifically says that you need 2 sets of D6. 6 or so of each should be fine. Also, tokens, miscellany, and a way to keep track of the rounds, which the game maxes out at 12. Now, at this point, I have not played through the play loop, so I don't know how long a turn takes. To just read it off gate, 12 seems like a really long game, but if the play loop is simple enough and quick enough, then that's not too bad. That'll go smoothly, but I don't know. So I don't know how that's going to pan out, but we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. The 2 sets of dice are one for rolling and one for specifically tracking initiative, which I personally always prefer to do on the character sheet, because if it's on the table, it's more likely that I'm going to pick it up, or it's going to get mixed in with a load of dice, or I'm going to fidget with it, or just, it's better for me to have those things on the character sheet. But if you like putting them on the table, it's your game. I'm not the fun police. I'm not here to stop you from doing anything. You're grown. We then come to rerolls, where the author has elected to do something that I don't see many people do. And I'm here for it. And it is that a dice can be re-rolled as many times as you have a different ability that will let you re-roll it. I like that because it prevents you from having dead skills or dead abilities that are just not useful, especially if it's a situation where you are potentially randomizing abilities at any point. But I just like that. Bonuses and penalties, as denoted by a plus or minus sign, are applied to the character's stats in this game. I think that you could still effectively just fast dice that and put it as a modifier when you're done rolling dice. But if it ever comes down to the fact of the matter, it is done by reducing the stat, which is... The recommended method for handling randomization is to assign everything a number and then roll a d6, re-rolling 5s or 6s. The re-rolling 5s or 6s makes me feel that there are going to be many times where you are randomizing 4 things, and me personally in those cases, I would rather roll a d4. It's just easier. But if you don't have access to that, you don't have just a set of polyhedrals sitting around, that is the recommended procedure. I would like to amend my statement earlier about the length of the game, because you could also end the game by models exiting the table through their designated exits. You can't just walk off any part of the board. There are designated exits at various points on the board. Now, he has chosen to do something with the scenarios that I love, because one of the downsides, not downsides, that's maybe not the right way of putting it, but one of the difficulties, for me anyways, when playing story-driven campaigns is that very often the after, like what's going to happen after the scenario is over, is included in the same pages as the scenario. And I'm fairly strict. Like, I don't want to know what's going to happen next. I want to get through this part of the story and then find out. He's chosen to separate those two things in the book, and I like that. I think that's lovely, because then I can play the scenario. I don't have to worry about spoilers. And then I'm assuming the scenario will give me a page number that I can go to find out what happens at the resolution of that scenario. It's referred to as briefing and resolution in the rules. I love that choice by the author, because it appeals to nerds like me. There are 3 character types in the game. Ghosts, which are the models you control. Allies, which are AI-driven models that are friendly to you. And threats, which are the baddies that you're there to deal with. The stat list is pretty straightforward: resilience, evasion, speed, initiative, skills. Now, he's done something here that I love, which is to give you the symbol for each of those things, so that when you see that symbol later, you know what it means and you're not trying to just figure it out. Many of those base stats are preset for your ghosts. They can, I believe, be modified slightly during the character creation process. Resilience is for mainly morale and damage before you're defeated. Evasion is exactly what it sounds like. Speed is added to your movement when you perform a dash action. He's also got brackets in here. I'll show you. They look like this. Right there. Where there will... Wait, is that one? Yeah, that's one. Right there. Where eventually, once everything is completed and the layout is done and the pages have been numbered, it's set up to tell you which page to go to, which is a trend that I've been seeing a lot more over the past 2 years, and I am here for it. Absolutely love that, for me, for the author, for all the nerds in the world who are tired of not knowing where to go find stuff. I was correct earlier. Your team always consists of 4 ghosts. However, there are some rules, like if you wanted to, I guess, maybe up the difficulty, or if there was something going on narratively that you wanted a reduced force, like maybe a rescue mission or something like that. There are rules in the back for playing games with 1, 2, or 3. So if you want to go 1, you could just go like straight solo. I may have to give that a go. See what that's about. But there you get 4. They do have a maximum potential that they can achieve, which is 6 in any skill value is the max. 3 talents, 3 augments, which is your chrome, your cyberware, your augmentations, whatever you want to call it. 2 weapons. And if you're carrying 2 weapons, at least one of them must have the sidearm quality. So you can't just roll double assault rifle or double shotgun or double BFG. And then 1 item of armor. And again, for all of those things, once everything is done, there will be page numbers to tell you exactly where the talents are, exactly where the augments are, exactly where the weapons are. That's such a small thing, and it makes such a huge difference on the user end. And I wish that had been a thing for the entirety of a decade plus that I've been playing with toy soldiers. We then come to the section on ghost creation, which we will, as always, talk about later. We'll go through those process and all those steps when we're getting ready to play our first game. In that are the talents, which I'm just going to say briefly. There's a solid 2 pages, probably 16 at least of these. So not so many that you're overwhelmed by choice, but enough that you can customize and get into the feel of the characters and the models that you're going to be playing with. I like that. I don't like it when there's only like a very small limited number. I also don't like it when there's a million. I want that Goldilocks spot. Just right. We then move into the rounds and phases of the game, and there's some stuff in here and in the skill checks that, at least there's one thing that I love. There's one small thing that I'm not a huge fan of. But in the initiative phase, your threats and allies are going to have set numbers that they roll at. For your ghosts, you roll a d6 and then assign each of them a dice. Now, this is the part that I think is really, really cool. And this works for not only your initiative, this is from what I understand, this is any test you make. When you make that initiative test, if they are assigned a dice that is less than their wit score, you can re-roll it. And you get that re-roll for everything. So like when you make a shoot test, if you roll dice that are less than your skill, you get to re-roll one of them. And I'm going to double check that as I'm reading through this again, talking to you guys. But that is my understanding. And I think that's a really, really cool idea. To get, not for infinite rerolls, but you get one because you're skilled enough that you should be able to do it better than that. So you get a second go at it. I like that. Yep, sure do. So then we go to the activation phase where everybody's going to get to do stuff. You go in order of initiative from highest to lowest. If there are ghosts that are tied, you can pick whatever order you want them to go in. If there are ghosts tied with threats or allies, then you activate ghosts first, then threats, then allies. I like that that's laid out clearly and plainly, not hard to find or dig for, right there at the beginning of the section. During your model's activations, they get to perform 2 actions and any number of immediates. And you may be asking yourself, well, how do I know the difference between an immediate or an action? And well, I'm going to tell you. And it's because Mr. Stroud has given us symbols and then told us exactly when to use them. And when you look at the skills and actions, they'll be prefaced by one symbol or the other. Again, just clean, nice design choice. Now, if one of your ghosts has a 6 as their activation, that means they're going to activate with adrenaline. They are just ready right at the edge of cyberpsychosis. And they're going to get an extra action during their turn. Morale in the game only applies to threats and allies. Ghosts are too well trained, too deep into the biz or the corp or whatever to be bothered by such trivialities. They are good at their job and they're there to perform it to completion or deletion, whichever happens first. Allies and threats, not so much. So if they start their turn with damage on them that is equal to half their wits, or no, yes, equal to or half their wits, they have to take a wits test, difficulty of a 4+. Success, they're good. Failure, they move as quickly as they can towards the closest exit. And they move as if they've rolled a 6 on a dash. So they would get their movement plus the 6 for the dash. Correction. They would get 1d6 plus their speed for that run to the exit. Other actions include focus, which you can do once, and its difficulty to hit is reduced by 1 with your attacks. You can interact, which is obviously deal with a terminal, a marker, an objective, whatever. And you can shoot. And again, we have a page number for where to go to find that information. Threats and allies cannot perform more than 1 attack. Ghosts, again, trained professionals. They can rock off as many shots downrange as they feel like. Full freaking send. Clip the previous. Terrain and cover is pretty straightforward. If it obscures the model, they have cover. If they're in area terrain, they have cover as long as you're not in it with them. If it's difficult terrain, cost of all movement is doubled. That's pretty standard. If they have cover, the difficulty to hit them is just a 6. And if you score a critical hit, which I assume is a 6, that is treated as a regular hit. But I could be wrong about the critical. I haven't quite gotten to that part today, and I don't remember it from when I read through this a week or two ago. Your ranged weapons don't have a maximum range. I love it when skirmish games include this. In full size, like army size war games where you're playing on a 6x4 table or bigger, I get it. But in a skirmish game where you're usually playing on a 3x3 or smaller, man, your gun can shoot across the board. I believe that firmly. Melee reach is something that I don't love the way it's done. It's probably my largest peak that I have about the system. Your range, your melee range, is half of the base size. So on like a standard 28mm base, you're looking at like a 1/2 inch. I don't just say it's a 1/2 inch, say it's an inch, or put ranges on the melee weapons. I don't know. It's not awful. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I just personally don't like that. I get where it's coming from. You know, like the bigger the model, it should be able to reach further. I don't know that I love that execution of that idea. But again, I haven't played it yet. And assuming that you have most of your collection on the same size base for the game, then it's not going to be a problem. But my models are sometimes based wonky just because those were the bases that I had around at the time, or because of the pose of the model. But I guess that's more of a me problem, not a everybody problem. I didn't really think about it that way when I was first reading through. If you're dealing with an area of effect weapon or blast or anything like that, then when you roll that, you are rolling separately for every model that was in that radius. So I was mistaken earlier. When you're making the test, you're not adding the stat, but the stat does affect your ability to make skill rerolls. It's just a D6 test against whatever the target number is. If it's equal or greater, it's a success. If not, it's a failure. Now, the skill reroll also had a little bit off when I said it a minute ago, because you reroll all dice that are below the skill, and you get 1 reroll on them. Still love that. I think that's a really nice piece of rulery. So when you're ready to punch or shoot somebody, you assign your attack dice, which is determined by the weapon. If the weapon has multiple attack dice, you can assign them to anyone that's in range. Once attack dice have been determined and assigned, you roll to hit. You are looking to meet or exceed that hit difficulty. If the target's in cover, the hit difficulty is 6. Otherwise, the hit difficulty is equal to your target's evasion. It also has a provision for close range fire, which I think is very cool. So if you are shooting at a model within 6 inches, the difficulty to hit is reduced by 1. And that includes melee, which you pretty much have to be within 6 inches for. So anytime you're in melee, you're automatically going to be hitting at their evasion -1. Interesting. Sounds bloody. You then have access to the aforementioned skill roll, and then you move on to resolving the hit. So for each hit, target suffers 1 damage, or whatever damage is listed under the damage stat of the weapon. I was right earlier. Criticals are a 6 and cause additional effects, I'm assuming determined by the weapon, when they hit a target that does not have cover. You can't crit somebody who's in cover. Those are just treated as regular hits. The effects are immobilized, jammed, or bullseye. 1 additional damage. Jam is you can't perform attacks with ranged weapons during their next activation. And then at that point, if the defender has armor, they would get to roll their armor saves to try to negate that damage that was pushing through. And it's just one dice for each damage you took. And your armor save is determined by the armor that you were wearing. The game also has melee crackback. It's called counter. So when you're attacked in melee, you can opt to swing back at them. However, you are hitting them on 6s, and attacks are resolved at the same time. It's Simo, so it's not like you swing, you kill me, I don't get to swing back. You still get that crackback. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, your resilience determines the amount of damage that you can take. Once you have damage equal to your resilience, you're gone. If it's a ghost, they have the option to go down in a blaze of glory, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But it's a pretty cool option. Now, anyone who's removed and does not go down in a blaze of glory, you get to roll on an injury table for them. Now, unfortunately, the campaign stuff is not in these playtest rules, so I'm excited to see what that's like once I can get my hands on it. We then come into our section of gear. It gives us an explanation of the different parts on the stat line. And then we've got our armor, weapons, not an absurd amount of choices, but enough to fit any model that you have, and then some probably. Then we have advanced weapons, and then our augments, so things from combat drones to jet wings, hyper legs, reflex boosters, spider claws, all the fun cyberpunk chrome that you know and love is here. We then have a playtest tutorial, and I think this is a really, really brilliant thing where it just walks you through every step of a turn and of game, tells you what they're going to do, and then explains it to you in the book. I think that's a really, really clever way, especially in a solo game / co-op where one or both players maybe have no idea what they're doing. It's nice to be able to just, all right, this is what you're going to do with everybody. This is why you're doing it. This is how it works when you're doing it, and what you do next when it's done. I think that's a really, really nice way to show someone how to play a game when you can't actually be there in person with them. Now, I'm hard-headed, and so I'll probably just learn the hard way, or I may play through the practice scenario where it's scripted, show you guys what that looks like, and then go try a game on my own. Where I don't script it and I can just run through and try to kill it. Then we've got the tutorial scenario and the threats that you need for it. I like it. I'm kind of bummed out that the campaign stuff isn't in here, and that may be because it's not ready or because there's still work to be done on the core of the game before you start dealing with all those add-ons. But it is something that I'm very, very excited to see whenever it gets to that point. Now again, I will do my best to track down a link if you want to check out these rules for yourself. If you are impatient, biting at the chomp, you want to see it in action now, my buddy Troy over at Outer Planet Models has got some playthroughs up. I'll drop a link. I'll try to remember to put a link up in one of those corners. If not, I'll try to remember to put it in the description. If you don't see it, please say something, because that means that I forgot and I want it to be there. But again, that's not your job, so you don't have to. But I would sure appreciate it if I forget. Anyways, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Again, really excited to see what the campaign progression looks like, what kind of scenarios are going to be in the mix. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I think that I'm done talking for now. Thanks so much for tuning in, hanging out, letting me talk at you for a little bit. I hope you have an absolutely amazing rest of your day.